What do you do if there's grumpy people who tell you that you can't do it?
Here's a great question. Are you a critic or are you a critical thinker? And if somebody comes to you with a great idea, or a rephrase, if somebody comes to you with an idea, particularly if it's never been done before, or you might think that they can't do it because they're too tall, too short, too inexperienced, don't have enough money, all the things that people say you can't do it because. Is it possible that a critic says you can't and a critic says these are the reasons why, whereas a critical thinker says, what if you could do it? What if we brainstorm this together? And what if there was a way for you to create this thing, invent this thing, develop this thing, make this idea a reality? And the reason this is such an important question to me, and I've had to come outside again in the fresh air and sunshine. I punched the bag for a few seconds. When I say seconds, it's 10 seconds flat out. But I did that a few times, got puffed, got my breath back, got puffed, got my breath back. Because I'm dealing with today, and unfortunately a couple of times already, people that have been told they can't. You can't have your own business. You're not smart enough. You don't have enough money. You can't create that brand new idea for the exercise profession. It won't work. And sadly, these people their brain gets affected. Well, it's probably a human nature thing, isn't it? Somebody tells you you can't, and if you respect that person, you probably think, well, if they think I can't, maybe I can't. I'm asking you as a adult, as a parent, teacher, coach, boss, leader, if somebody comes to you with an idea and you say you can't do it, you tell them no, you can't, why would we say that? How do we know that it can't be done? How do we know that it can't be achieved? How do we know that it can't be invented? And the reason I ask that question is every single thing that has ever been created, invented, developed was once an idea and somebody said it won't work. So if somebody comes to you with an idea, even if you think it can't work or they're not smart enough or they don't have enough money or enough experience, wouldn't it be embarrassing if for you to say you can't, then they go away and they do it and prove you wrong? Now, I think that's exciting. I love it when people prove me wrong, but I'm never one of the people that would ever say you can't do that. I love it when I've got an idea. If I've got an idea and I think, I'm not sure if that can work, and I prove myself wrong because I'm the person that says, Rowie, don't think that way. Here's what you're going to do. Rather than you can't do it, I wonder if it would work. It goes like this. How will it work? What do I need to do to make it happen? And as an adult, as a person who is a critical thinker, and there's lots of different definitions for critical thinking, I get that, and a lot of people have different ideas about what we should be teaching our kids and how to be critical thinkers. But surely it's about thinking for yourself and thinking about both sides. So if somebody says that you can't, how about say, what if I could? If somebody says it won't work, what if you say, what if it did? If somebody says you can't afford it, what if you say, well, what if I can? How can I afford it? And what would I need to do so that I can afford it? And I'm asking that very personally. I always share this as my begging position. Because if you criticise somebody and say, you can't, it's not possible, it won't work, yes, it will be embarrassing for you if they go and do it. I will share with you that has been the driving force for some people, and it's certainly been the driving force for me. Whenever somebody says to me, you can't do that, it won't work, I put my brain into action and say, well, what if I could do it? What if it did work? And my funnest example, I was told I'd never run a marathon before, and I'd never done a bodybuilding competition before. I didn't really want to do a bodybuilding competition, and I really didn't want to run a marathon either. I had done lots of half marathons, and I actually thought that I couldn't run 42.2 kilometres. But somebody told me that I can't, and this is how it happened. It was somebody said, you're too big to be a marathon runner. You're too muscular. You just can't do it. You won't be able to do it. You physically can't do it. And somebody else told me I was too small to be a bodybuilder. I was too small to compete on stage. And they told me that in the same year, two separate people. So I took on this great challenge to do a marathon and a bodybuilding competition in the same year. And because I'm a never giver upper, and the only definition of failure is if you give up, so I don't like to fail, so I never give up. If you never give up, you can never fail. I just love sharing that. And yes, I competed in a bodybuilding competition. There's a fun story to that. I actually won that. But the reason I won that is because nobody else showed up. There was 15 people in my division to compete. And as I was driving to the competition, the event organiser called me and said, there was 15 women in your event. 14 of them have pulled out. Obviously, they believed in their own headspace that they weren't good enough. They didn't believe that they could compete that day, so they didn't show up. So all I had to do was rock up, stand on stage, do my routine, and I won the competition. I've got a huge trophy. I never want to do it again. I'm not interested in that particular kind of competition. Standing on stage in a bikini, having people judge your body is not my thing. I get that a lot of people love it. It's just not my thing. But I want to share with you that when somebody tells you that you can't do it, maybe that is your driving force to give it a go. Not just to prove them wrong, or not at all to prove them wrong, but just to, if you get into the habit of believing other people's can't, is it possible that when you're in the habit of doing that, that something might come along that is really important to you, and somebody tells you that you can't, and you believe them because you're in the habit of believing it? Wouldn't that be sad? The reverse of the bodybuilding, I didn't think I could run 42.2 kilometres. I did. I loved it. And I did 21 marathons after that with my big body that was too big to run marathons. And I'm sharing that with you again because that was one of the driving forces that got me started. You can't do it, so I gave it a crack anyway. And that requires critical thinking. If you just believe that you can't, if somebody criticises you because you're too tall, too short, too big, too small, you can't do it, that's somebody criticising. They're a critic of what you're doing. Then how about just think about it? Can I? Is it possible? How would I? What if it was possible? And to me, that is critical thinking. Because if you use the word critical, that's usually related to an emergency. If something's really important to you and you want it to work, wouldn't it be really important to look at both sides? So if somebody tells you that you can't, would it be a really good idea to consider, well, how could I? And I want to share this again because I think it's really important. Everything that's ever been achieved was once considered impossible, and people were told it can't work, it won't work, you can't do it, it'll never happen. Something as simple as a car, some experts told Henry Ford that the human body couldn't go as fast as he thought a car could go. I think it was like 40 miles an hour, that people would die if they went that fast. So if he had listened to them, he wouldn't have developed the car. He would have given up on it. Obviously, we were told we couldn't fly. But the Wright brothers said, well, birds can fly. Let's work out how birds do it. Let's brainstorm it and let's have a go. And they had lots of goes, but they kept having a go. And I'm pretty glad they did because now we can fly around the world. My favourite story, of course, is Steve Jobs, who was talking to a group of computer experts. And he said to them, I want to put the personal computer into everybody's life. And the experts said to him, what would they do with it and why would they want one? Well, I don't know about you, but everywhere I go now, everybody's got a personal computer in their hand and they actually can't live without it. So we went from nobody's going to want one and what would they do with it. Steve Jobs was criticised even for his idea. The critics criticised Steve Jobs' idea of personal computers in everybody's lives. And now it's become not just a normal part of life, it's a critical part of life for a lot of people. They can't live without their phone, their personal computer in their hand. So whatever idea you've got, you could listen to the critics who criticise you and say that it can't be done. Or you could be a critical thinker and work out, how can I do it? If this is important to you, why would you listen to the people who say that you can't? Please listen to your own brain that created the idea. And in your own brain, brainstorm, how can I make it work? What do I need to do to make it happen? And then perhaps surround yourself with other people who don't have negative thinking or limited thinking. I think that's one of the biggest challenges in the world, limited thinking. If people tell you that it can't be done, it's because they are being limited by their own thinking, by their own imagination. They can't think outside that box. Well, here's a great idea. Don't just get outside the box and think, create a new bloody box. If you can see it, if you can dream it, if you can imagine it, you can make it happen. So don't let somebody tell you that you can't. Don't let the critics. And here's a great thing. No statue, no important day, nothing of value has ever been given to critics. They, by occupation, criticise. A critic criticises. That's what they do for a living. I, A, don't want to be involved with people like that, and B, what's the point? If you can create it in your own brain, then go and make it happen, and don't let somebody else tell you that you can't. And particularly if it's something that's been done before, which is what I've been dealing with today. You can't be an exercise professional. You can't be successful in the exercise profession. You're too tall, too short, too fat, too skinny. You don't have enough experience. You don't have enough money. All those stupid things that people say. It's just not true. Because are there successful people in the exercise profession? Yes. Are there multimillionaires? Yes. Are there chains of health clubs? Yes. I was around when everyone said it's impossible that there'll be 24-hour health clubs. That's how old I am. It was the Critic said no one's ever going to be able to open a 24-hour health club. Now, health clubs that weren't 24 hours are now becoming 24 hours, and 24-hour health clubs are all over the world, and there's chains of them, hundreds and thousands of them. So that's just a simple example of the exercise profession where somebody said, you can't. Somebody critically thought about, what if people want to exercise at 3 o'clock in the morning? What if people want to go to the gym at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sparkle Day Sunday afternoon and most gyms are closed? Let's bloody open them up. Open up your brain, think for yourself, be a critical thinker and love your life. Could that be living your life to the max? I think that's a great question, and I'd love our kids to learn that. And how will our kids learn it if we don't set the example? So if a child says to you with a big happy smiley face, let's try this, rather than saying that's silly, that won't work, it's impossible, how about we say, let's give it a crack. How could we make it work? What if it was possible? Could that be a way to live your life to the max? Thank you for coming to Romax, and may you sing every day like I do. I love my life because it's wonderful and awesome and amazing because I've learnt to think for myself. Woohoo!